Alright, so today I've got another NPC upgrade build for you guys, and we're looking at Sulla's Entangle AC. And what are the main issues with this build, other than his odd color scheme choices? Just kidding, I love his color scheme, it's really nice. But basically it's the pulse gun, right? And it's not just that the pulse gun is bad, because it is, but it also leaves his build in a really awkward position. And normally he's got the Javelin Beta missile launcher, and the Plasma missile launcher as well. And you kind of want to use these as a sort of a combo to build up ACS stagger, right? And then also Javelin Alpha Bazooka kind of ends up being what you need to use to really finish off that stagger, because you just kind of need to, right? Because Javelin Beta missile launcher and the Plasma missiles just don't quite enough to guarantee a stagger. So you often feel like you need to use that Javelin Bazooka launcher to get the stagger, right? But that leaves you in an awkward position where you really don't have anything to do direct damage with. So that pulse gun is really hindering his build a lot, right? So obviously that's going to be the main focus of the changes. And then also switching up his internals to be a little bit better, changing out frame parts where I need to. But I've kind of taken a different approach from normal, where I've kind of designed this like I would design a PvP build. And it just so happens I've been working on a fun little setup with the vertical plasma missiles and the Javelin Beta, where if you time it right, you can fire the vertical plasma missiles, and then based on how far away your opponent is from you, you can fire a Javelin Beta at like a certain amount of delay, and you can get this really nice setup where basically both the vertical plasmas and the Javelin Beta will land at the same time, like connect with the opponent at the same time. You either get them in this setup where it's really hard for them to avoid damage just in general because you've got all these missiles, and then if they can't avoid it, they can end up taking a lot of damage, especially combined with the Javelin Bazooka or just any other like similar type weapon. But in this case, the Javelin Bazooka, right? Throw that into the mix, does a ton of impact damage. You can really guarantee a stagger very quickly. Combine this with what is quickly becoming one of my favorite sidearms for PvP, the laser rifle. I don't remember which one it is, but we'll get into that in a moment. But the laser rifle works great as a sidearm. It's just sort of a long-range poke, but also as a fully charged shot, does quite a good chunk of directed damage, and it's quickly becoming, again, one of my favorite sidearms in PvP. I absolutely love it. It's also got a really sick charging animation, the way it sort of expands. The way it looks really cool. This thing is also a big plus. But yeah, I'll go into some more detail when we get into it, so let's go into a more detailed explanation of the assembly. Now, getting into the weapons here, first we've got the Javelin Alpha, which is kind of a more direct hit focused bazooka than the other ones, but I realized I haven't really talked about much using this as a direct hit damage dealer as much as I use this for getting stagger damage, right? So my personal opinion, if it wasn't for the fact that it's kind of an iconic weapon for Sulla, I would run the Majestic instead personally. It feels a bit more consistent as well, because one thing with the Javelin Alpha is sometimes enemies can get out of those follow-up explosions that happen, and you won't get all the damage or all the impact. It can be a little inconsistent, but it's such an iconic weapon that I decided to leave it on, even though personally I would use the Majestic instead. Now, I mentioned it before, but I switched out the left arm unit, the plasma gun, for this 6.6 LRA laser rifle, right? And again, this is quickly becoming one of my favorite sidearms for PvP. It's got a decent amount of damage on the regular uncharged shot. It's got good range. You can use this to sort of poke at your opponents, but it's also got a really good charge attack with a good amount of damage. Combine this with a high energy specialization generator, you can get a lot of damage on a direct hit with this thing. It's just a nice versatile sidearm to have on. Really good. Now, for the back units, first I've switched out the plasma missile launcher for a different one. Again, before, but that vertical plasma missile launcher to get that set up with the Javelin Beta, where you can again fire the plasma missiles, delay your Javelin Beta about amount of the time it takes to get used to, but delay it just right, and you can get this really nasty combo where they would land at the same time, right? And then of course the Javelin Beta, I've left this alone. This thing is surprisingly good. When I first tried this thing out, I thought it was really bad, but the more I mess with it, the more I ended up liking it. This thing is surprisingly good, right? Definitely don't underestimate it. It can apply a lot of pressure. And that's really all there is to say about the weapons, although I guess I will say this is a loadout I would take into PvP. Maybe not with the Javelin Alpha. If I was going to again use the bazooka, I would use the Majestic. but I probably wouldn't use a bazooka here anyways. I'm still not a huge fan of bazookas in PvP, even after the buffs. You can still feel a little inconsistent. Netcode notwithstanding, of course. Sometimes they can make them a lot more consistent, but except at really, really close ranges, they can be a little inconsistent still, right? So not the hugest fan of the bazookas even still, but pretty solid all around. Again, a build I would take into PvP and would expect at least a moderate amount of success, right? But that's about all there to say about the weapon. Let's go ahead and move on to the frame. Now, starting with the head, first we've got the VE44A head, which from his original VP44D head. The main reason for this change was just to have a bit of a defensive upgrade, but also I had to shave some weight off elsewhere, and then I had ended up with some extra load capacity. I ended up switching for this head just for some more defenses, right? You do lose a bit of attitude stability, but it's actually quite a bit of extra defense, and I felt it was worth it personally. You could keep this head instead. It doesn't really make that big of a difference, but I just wanted a little bit of extra tank out of the head. Now the core I've left alone, mostly because this is a decent generator output core, so wasn't that much reason to change it. You could switch it out for a couple different things, like the Mind Alpha, but it would slow you down a bit. Not enough to really matter, but I also really like how this core looks, and I thought it was a nice iconic look. I wanted to keep it on Sulla, right? Now for the arms, I switched out his original arms, the big Arquebus arms. I talked about this, but I had to switch these out because they're just a bit too heavy. I switched these out for the Meza arms because there aren't a lot of lightweight arm options that don't have their arms overburdened here with the weapon loadout. So the Meza arms are kind of obvious choice. It's also arms with good firearm specialization and decent recoil control, good arms load limit. Not super amazing defensively, right? But just good all around other than that, right? And then for the legs, I switched out for the HAL 826. I needed extra load limit, right? I needed extra carry capacity. And, they're decent legs all around. They got decent defenses, APs all right, attitude stabilities all right. They're just pretty good all around, legs, right? Nothing to really complain about with the HAL legs. And yes, all there is to say about the frame. One thing I will mention, if you're planning to bring this build into PvP, you may consider switching out the head for the VE44B head if you're looking to really sort of optimize things, or one for that extra system recovery and the extra attitude stability, but particularly to deal with stun guns and stuff like that. If you're having issues with someone who's running a stun gun build, the VE44B head can really take that, trivialize it, right? Just a little tip there. So let's go ahead and move on into the internals now. Again, internals. First, I just want to mention the expansion. So I have assault armor on because I was, recording footage for this in PvE, and obviously assault armor is really good in PvE just for extra damage output, help guarantee those S ranks. But realistically, if I'm taking this into PvP, I'm using terminal armor personally. It's just what I always use in PvP now, mostly just so I don't have to think about it, right? Now, other than that, first the boosters. The NGI001. This is a fairly hefty build, and I don't have particularly any particular need for the super high assault boost boosters or anything like that for PvP in this case. So I decided just to stick with the NGI001. They're nice, consistent boosters, especially for heavyweight builds. Good upward thrust as well. A bit high on the energy upward thrust consumption, but good upward thrust, good thrust in general. Just good boosters all around, right? Nothing else that particularly struck me as what I wanted, so I just with the I001, right? Unfortunately, just too heavy even for the gills. Really sad, but it is what it is. Now for the FCS, I've gone for the P10 SLT, particularly just for the really high missile lock correction. Otherwise, the missile lock on for the Javelin Beta and the plasma missile launchers can be really long. But really wanted the highest missile lock on correction I could get. That's why I'm going with that one. Unfortunately, the assist stats aren't particularly great, but it is what it is. Really need that lock on. For the generator, I've switched out his original generator for the VE20C, particularly for that high energy arm specialization. Again, to really make that 66LRA shine, right? The good, damage modifier there. Really hit like an absolute truck with that rifle, and that's why I've switched it out. And obviously I've got more than enough energy load, so it feels good, right? And yeah, that's all there is to say about the build. As always, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stick around in a moment for some more gameplay. And as always, again, hope you enjoyed the video. Take it easy and have a good one, everybody.
Yes, Raven, I feel it too. This mercenary has potential.
AP at 50%. At 30%.
Raven, we can still... Alright. We'll watch this one. See where they go on a Raven's wings.
All enemy ACs destroyed. Mission accomplished.
Main system activating combat mode.
Commence mission. Destroy the Planetary Closure Administration, LCs, and the new HC.
I'm grateful for your assistance, Raven. The targets are stationed in 2 camps. Attack one, and the other will move to reinforce. I'll leave the question of...
HC detected. It's an enforcement.
We're under attack. Cancel the maintenance. Get the HC online now. Did the corporations hire you? They must be confident to come here alone. No matter. This beauty's more than a match for some patchwork AC.
The HC line is reserved for elites and packs cutting-edge technology.
No. The HC. Cutting edge.
New model HC destroyed. That just leaves the LCs. Enemy signatures approaching. 2 LCs.
Lieutenant! HC failed. Take up an HC.
Code 31A. Chief Sergeant down.
Target LC.
My LC gonna blow.
All targets destroyed. Mission accomplished, Raven.
You live up to your name, Raven. You fight like a bird in flight. You may yet fly higher. Beyond Rubicon's scorched skies to chase the freedom